Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing my build of the Estes Sasha, our two-stage, not scale model, but scale inspired, we'll call it. Anyway, so in the intervening time since the last video, I have rounded all the fins. These ones we're going to need today, like right now. The other ones I will need probably next video or maybe one after that. Don't know quite yet. Quick word of warning though, this one in particular, when I rounded all these edges, when you're rounding them, be extra careful. I did not damage any of them, but when you're sanding them, this cut goes halfway through the fin. It wouldn't take very much to snap that, so do be careful with it. So we can get those off to the side. I have also drawn the lines onto the tube, so that is ready to go. We're not going to need that just quite yet. Maybe next video again. Today's goal is, actually no, we do need that now. Getting a little ahead of myself. We are going to put the second engine mount into the second stage body tube. So in order to do that, it's pretty straightforward. We just need a little bit of glue. It's going to end up going in here, and it's going to end up with the ends flush. So that should be pretty easy. Let's take care of that before we do anything else. Now to do this, we're going to put glue maybe like an inch. It is exactly an inch, right? So about an inch in, and this is 4-ish inches. The instructions actually don't specify precisely how far, but that's kind of ballpark what we're shooting for. I am only going to put glue inside of this with the dowel, the stick, to get the far one. And I'm going to do my best to brush this stuff in a fairly uniform, like 3.5 inches, give or take. You could certainly measure this if you wanted to. Probably not necessary. Again, it's going to, if you put it in too short, that's fine, because you're going to end up pushing the motor mount through the glue. So that's kind of a non-issue. As for this right here, again, I'm not going to measure it. I'm going to try to put a layer, most the way of an inch. So it's probably about 3/4 of the way in at the moment. You can have a look, maybe. Yeah, that's probably good enough. And then this is just going to slide in like so. And then I'm going to use a table to get it flush. I will, I don't know, getting a fillet inside of this is not going to be easy. It's pretty far. What I do want to make sure though is that the glue, because there are a couple little beads of glue that I dribbled, I want them gone, because this needs to be a good fit. This part's going to go in there, and that's going to be the coupler between the two stages, so I don't want to have any serious amounts of extraneous glue in there, and I don't at the moment, so that's fine. So away that goes. That's great. Next up, we are going to complete, or at least do most of the work on the first stage. So the first stage, it's pretty basic, right? I mean, there isn't a whole lot to it. It's this. This part goes on here, and the instructions actually say that we should put this on in this construction step, but I'm not going to do that. This is going to happen after everything is done, because this is going to be painted kind of a silvery, I guess, and this is not, so we will use that later. The main thing that we need to do right now is to get the fins on and to get the red coupler in like this. So the red coupler is going to go in like this. I guess it doesn't hurt to put it in now. Now's as good a time as any. So I'm just going to put some glue inside here. Is there any particular need to spread it out? Probably not. I'm going to spread it out anyway. I would like this pretty close to the edge. So there we go. That's pretty good. And then remember, I marked this midway. There. good enough. Alright, now the next challenge is going to be to get the fins on. The fins, we're going to use typical fin construction techniques. So that means glue on the root. And this actually, it's kind of a weird root, right? So it's got this little bit, that's going to need some glue. And then across like so. And then, there we go. This is going to take two applications, right? One, we're just going to brush on here. And we're going to let it sit for a bit to start to tack up, and then we will put the second layer of glue on in about 30 seconds or so. This will give us a stronger bond than we would get otherwise. Now, you could put some glue along the side of this notch that's going to go in the fin. I don't think it's really going to accomplish much, if anything. So I'm going to forego that, but it really would not hurt to put a little bit of extra, and especially if you put too much glue on, wiping the excess onto this part would not be the world's worst idea. So it's been about 30 seconds probably. Second layer of glue. This one should be thinner than the first, and again, if I get any truly copious amounts, then this is a great time to wipe that onto the side. It's going to go in. Alright. Now, time to attach. Make sure it's pointed the right direction. That would, of course, be important. And then it's going to fit in here. You remember the little, on the engine mount, there was a gray over tube. Well, this is great because the fin has been cut to account for that. But we do need to get it in. Which, by the way, I did test fit all these. You should really test fit them. There we go. That wasn't the smoothest fit going in, though. I'm not entirely sure why. But yeah, do test fit them to make sure that they do fit. It shouldn't be that much of a problem. If they don't fit, sand it a bit more. I'm going to hold it in place for 30 seconds or so for this to tack up. I don't really have any concerns about this going in. Of course, I say that, and that's probably like the kiss of death for this working properly, but through the fin construction tends to be pretty strong, and the good news about through the fin too, or through the tube fin construction, there we go, is that it can't fall off, right? Because it's in the tube. The worst it could do would be get misaligned. Alright, so that's reasonably good. It needs to, of course, dry fully, but I've cleaned out most of the excess goop from the glue, and I'm going to let it sit, and I'm going to continue the construction. Typically I don't think I would bother showing all four of these, but wouldn't be the world's worst idea, because after all four are on, then we need to check alignment. Ooh, that's annoying. A little bit of a run there. Glue places where it doesn't belong. That's irksome. What are you going to do? Clean it up. That's what you're going to do. Alright. Do your best to not get glue places it doesn't belong, of course, because if you do get places it doesn't belong, you're going to have to either sand it down later, or if you get it on the body tube, that's even more annoying. Try to get it off while it's still liquid and easy to deal with. Naturally, of course, we do need to check for alignment. We'll kind of check as we go here, but you know, it's not that bad with through the fin or through the wall construction, because there are only a limited number of ways you could really align the fins. You know, because the fact that they have to go through the wall means that they're pretty much going to be, not perfectly, but they're going to be pretty close to perpendicular one way or the other, or they're not going to fit. So that is one added benefit, in addition to the strength. This is way stronger than just gluing it to the outside. I don't know what I did here, but these are not fitting as nicely as when I test fit them all earlier. That's annoying. Yeah. I wonder if I slightly deformed the tube here by putting the first one in. That's possible. Yeah. Well, again, this is why you test fit. There we go. Yeah, so the practical consequences of that are that I might have bumped the first one, and second, I spread glue places it doesn't belong on the one I was just working on, so that's annoying. We'll hold this and let it start to set up for about 30 seconds again, and then we'll move on. I do need to clean up that glue. Well, that's annoying. Alright. I'm actually going to break out my paper towel because that was a good amount in places it doesn't belong. Well, that's also not great too. It is pretty far pulled away at the front. That is one of the things that you don't generally have happen when you do more conventional fin construction. It usually doesn't pull away because it would just fall off more than anything else. Hopefully, yeah, there we go. Hopefully that isn't a lasting problem. And this one, like I said, this pulled away a little bit too. So I'm going to have to hold that down a little bit again, reestablish this. If these end up drying and there is a noticeable gap, well, we're just going to fill it. We're going to fill it with wood glue. It's not ideal, but it's not the world's worst thing either. Alright, continuing on. Here's hoping for better luck on the other ones. So in general, I really do prefer the through the wall, but no method is perfect. They all have their little quirks. And the oddity about this is that the booster stage here is going to have through the wall, but the second stage, the main part of the rocket, isn't. I suspect the reason for that is this stage is going to fall back to Earth. It's going to tumble. Right? There is no recovery system for the first stage. That means it's going to hit the ground, well, fairly hard. So if it were just a traditional fin attachment, I suspect we lose fins more often than we wouldn't. So the fact that the first stage, the booster stage, has through the fin is probably to account for that. Alright, let's try this. Jeez. There we go. All right. Well, that's in, but I royally, oh jeez, yeah, I completely disrupted the other one, the other side opposite to it, which I guess isn't the world's worst thing because I can hold them in together pretty effectively like this and let them set up. I actually can't see how well they're aligned at the moment. You probably can. Hopefully they're not all that far off, but I'm just kind of guessing. This is my best estimate as to how accurately aligned they are. Yeah, and as you can see, I'm going to have to do the final alignment once everything's in because it seems, for whatever reason, you know, this fit is so snug that every time that I put a new fin on, I'm disrupting everything else that I already did. So, you know, that's irritating, but what are you going to do? Alright, this is not set at all. unfortunately, the front part of the fin pulled out as soon as I let go, so that's apparently not ready yet. I'll have to give that a little bit more time. Yeah, the last one, well, the fact that we have fins in here, I think, does make it a little bit more difficult because it's deforming the tube. You know, typically the tube, if it deformed, you wouldn't even notice it if you were doing a more traditional fin attachment. But, you know, as we put fins through the tube changes shape. And that can make it, well, it could make it easier, probably not. But in our case, in this case here, it is making it more difficult to get this all squared away. But at least the fins aren't falling off. That's always nice. The fins falling off is, you know, an error most annoying in what could happen in this process. So hopefully I won't dislodge any more fins adding this last one, but I suspect I will, and that's fine because we'll just recenter everything as soon as I get this last fin on anyway. Because that's the last bit of work anytime you put fins on, is check for final alignment. At least two, we are dealing with 4 fins, so they are all going to be at 90-degree angles, and 90-degree angles are easy to work with. Alright, last one. There we go. That wasn't as bad. Right. Let's hold it in place. Good 30 seconds. And then we'll see what needs to be done. Again, you probably can tell right now how badly aligned the fins are. But from my vantage point, I can't really see. So pretend to be surprised, I guess. I do need to mop up some of the glue. I can see it's dripping down on my side here from the last fin. This will need to get fillets as soon as it's set. I'm not going to do that in advance. So I'm going to let the glue dry, then I can put fillets on. I do want it to not be vertical like this for this very reason. Because the glue, I mean, it is a liquid, right? It doesn't flow very much, but it does flow, and you can see right here, this is dribbled all the way down. It was, you know, a good ½ inch higher when I started talking. Alright, so the fins are in place. It's time to check alignment. Now, there is, in the instructions, there's an alignment guide. You can see, that's the shadow printed in the middle of that. I'm actually not going to use that. I will use that for the second stage, but I'm not going to use it for the first. And the reason I don't really need to worry about the first is because I have this grid line on my cutting mat here. And so long as I center the rocket on one of the grid lines, I should be able to adjust things accordingly. So, there we go. Alright, and now it's just time to, keep bumping things. It's time to adjust, make little adjustments to get the fins in line with my grid. It would be easier to do this upside down, but we've got this engine hook in the way, so not actually an option. Do one last spot check here. It's always a good idea to rotate things 90 degrees and then take another look to see if you still have all the fins lined up reasonably well with whatever using to, whoops, to check the alignment. And it's not great. Not surprising considering how much trouble I had bumping my own work, but yeah, that's not really great. Maybe we will break out the shadow guide here. Honestly, I don't think this is really much better, but sometimes it's nice to have more than one. Oops. More than one vantage point. Alright, these two look fine. This one's okay. This one's pretty wildly off. Okay, alright, I'm going to say that's good. I'm going to let this sit for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to check it again. I don't have any real reason to believe this, but sometimes it feels like the fins drift a little bit as they are drying. So I'm going to leave this alone. I will check on it in 5 minutes, and then I'll put fillets on, and that will be it for right now, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.